more or less investing in companies, and I'm on the operator side. So I work as a support system for our portfolio companies. So a lot of great visibility I have to growthy companies, but thought I would take some time to show you or kind of educate you on some KPIs. That was part of, I think, Anita's roadmap. And so you got to bear with me because I know we've got different types of maturity levels around running a business and KPIs and metrics. So I'm going to do the best I can to kind of give you an overview of what I see and really tried to pare it down to a few things. And this is an open discussion. So I don't have my video popped up to see your faces or anything. So you have to kind of butt in and let me know if you have questions. All right. From that, there is quite a bit of good information out there around lots of things, including KPIs. There's HubSpot is actually a CRM solution if you aren't already using one. And they really talk about the importance of making sure that you're measuring everything from the end goal and measuring it backwards to what your metrics should be. So I will kind of give you an example of that, but it's really important to kind of understand what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, and then the activities that support that goal. So most of my review of the KPIs are really going to be about go-to-market and really about operational metrics. Okay, so we'll start, for those of you who are on the discussion around grow, I think it was what, get, gain, grow, retain customers on a few weeks ago. I showed you guys a customer journey. So that's really where we're going to start. We're going to start with customer journey because there are lots of different, the customer is everything. It's the whole reason why we're doing business. And there are different inflection points within that customer journey that we can measure to see if we're actually servicing the customer the best. And that might be at the awareness level. Product awareness is typically, and even product research is typically in our way that we market to the end customer. And it might be whether it's on your website, but there's activities around digital marketing, there's activities around thought leadership and blogging. There's other aspects around getting your product out there. There's a lot of peer review sites out there as well, where people are interested in the technology and don't know who the players are and want to know, if you happen to be on those peer review sites, they can learn more about you as well as who you compete against. That's really part of that product research piece. And then going into consideration and purchase is really that engagement with your seller or your sales motions. And that can be very quickly. So some people actually prefer to do everything digitally, and that is for very, very high velocity type of deals. But for those of you who are really selling more kind of infrastructure-based product, there's a lot more engagement that has to happen with the economic buyer as well as all the stakeholders associated with that buying process. And that's where the whole aspect of value proposition comes into play. So there are metrics around that process. And then finally, once you onboard a customer, are they getting the time to value? How fast are they getting time to value? Are they getting the value out of it and continuing to be a good customer and engage you for continued relationship and potentially even really become an advocate for you and spread the word on your behalf. So those are the things that the KPIs we're going to look at, which are associated with the customer journey. I'm going to stop right there before we go in, if anyone has any questions. All right. So I'm going to move on. All right, so if we take a look at marketing and how marketing builds awareness and really also enables the research process, your objective here is to educate the market about your company, how your product solves for the customer problems, driving interest and demand for your product, and passes any leads to sales. So that is essentially what the objective of marketing is doing. And in that, you are looking at particular metrics and KPIs. So bookings is something that everyone is interested in. It is everybody's job to sell. It is everybody's job to book a deal. And so in that, bookings is essentially the dollar that you book or that you contract. So it might be the total contract value. CAC, or customer acquisition cost, is essentially how much it costs in total between your sales and marketing to acquire a new customer. And so oftentimes you'll see this metric come back in some of the governance KPIs, but just be aware of what that is. A cost per lead. This is typical when there are some of you who might go forward and ask for paid search. You will ask for pay for contact information on potential buyers and prospects. And as you get those leads, you process them and you qualify out if they are the right fit for your product and have a need for your product. And that qualification process produces an opportunity, right? So in the cost per lead or qualified lead, let's say you pay $500 for a database of names. If you get 20 leads out of them, that is not opportunities. It's just essentially a qualified lead. They're a fit for what you believe would be good buyers to have in your contact database. That is $25 cost per lead. Okay. Now, if you have a lead to conversion, that is when you have a lead in play and it converts all the way to a win. So a lot of folks actually use lead to conversion, especially if they're doing freemiumware. So if you have any freemium and people are onboarding and using your good, or in this case, software is a big freemium area, and it can convert all the way to a win. There's a metric around that. It's everywhere. People are everywhere around this, but I've seen some very good lead to conversion wins in the 10% area, but it's usually that it's more in the single digit area, so around 5. Organic search, social media traffic. This is really kind of measuring out the number of visits you get to your website, the number of clicks that go through your blog, number of reads that you have, number of form fills that actually come through your website. So these are all the organic search, social media traffic, blogging, this is all areas that really can come from you, very cheap. But if you're diligent about it, very effective, right? So this is when you really generate demand and interest for your technology and can really capture even leads from from people visiting your site or trying to engage you because the blog was really interesting, or potentially even filling out a form on your website because they want to download some white paper that you have. Okay. Any questions here?
So I got one here. So we're planning to enter the market indirectly through partnerships with a pharma company.
Yep.
So what sort of KPIs and metrics do I need to reach my objective?
It's still the same, because you are marketing directly to, you're actually marketing directly to the partner. Your partner and so when you're keyed in on what the end customer's problem set is, that and how, you're very much, you and the partner are kind of thinking the same thing, right? You're trying to solve for the same problem. So what you'll get is you'll get some end user interest in it, and you can actually refer those leads over to your partner, but it is also attracting your partners too. So everything around number of clicks, number of visits, the blog interest is all stuff that you will be tracking also for partner inquiry. So as far as when we get into, if you are really depending on your partners to sell through your partners, and you're really kind of dependent on them to generate the leads for you, then what happens is you have to do a whole lot of work around enablement, that you're always on the top of their mind. And that is, you still have to spend some time on marketing and brand, really getting to show that you're solving for the problems and feeding any organic leads over to your partners, as well as enabling them to speak very clearly about your solution and how it fits into the outcomes that they are trying to drive.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we move? All right, well, one last piece on the conversion rates, and I'll bring this up later in an example. The conversion rates are essentially, what does it take, what percentage of people who visit your site and fill out a form actually convert into someone you talk to about their problem? And that is a conversion rate of inquiry to lead. And then there's another conversion rate of that person you contacted and is willing to talk to you about their problem, right, to an opportunity that you're now in the selling process. So those two conversion rates are kind of important as well to know, and I'll explain that in further on in this discussion. Okay, so when we get into selling, you're looking at a few here. Of course, your objective is that you're learning about the customer's problems, and that you're demonstrating or communicating how your problem solves for the customer's problems. And then finally, that you're convincing your customer to buy now. Okay, so that's those are your objectives. The KPIs and metrics around that, again, are bookings, very similar because everyone's selling. The revenue, so what you're able to recognize within this fiscal year. So it's great if you book something, but if they can't pay you within the year or give you a good steady stream of revenue, it doesn't make any sense, right? So you have to balance the aspect of revenue for the year as well as the total contract value. Your win rate, how successful are you in selling to your opportunity base, as far as win rate? So that's the number of wins over your total qualified pipeline. So it might be where you have, even if you have a pipeline of 10, are you able to convert those? What percentage of those are you able to convert to a win, right? There's another aspect in here that I won't bring up right now, which is aging. But just know that there is an aspect of aging. You do want to, you don't want things sitting in your pipeline for a really long time. Pipeline coverage is essentially the inverse of the win rate. So what does that mean? It means within this year, so I have a win rate of, let's say, 25%. I mean, we really, all people like try to strive for really is about 30% is usually, you know, okay. But let's say I have a win rate of 25%. What does that mean? It means I need 5 times the amount of wins in my pipeline, right? So if I want to, my goal for the year is to book $100,000, I need $500,000 within my pipeline. Okay. So I gave you 5 times. I should have said 4 times because it's 25% of my win rate and it was really 4 times, but you get my drift. Okay. So also for us, the other thing that's important is sales cycles. How fast does a deal move from lead to win? A lot of people, depending on how complex your sale is, what the buying cycle is of your buyer, it can range from if it's a price point issue, right? So if your average sales price is in the, you know, under $10,000, then, you know, your sales cycle might be somewhere around, you know, 30 to 60 days. If it is more like, you know, several $100,000, it is much more complex in sale and has several buyers associated with it, or even in the millions. That is probably a 18-month to 24-month sales cycle, right? So given the pipeline velocity and understanding how fast it takes to sell your product, it starts to have impact on what pipeline you need to be continually creating so that, you know, you don't have like a blowout quarter and then you have nothing else to sell, right? Or you haven't been nurturing your opportunities down the pipeline, right? So that you have a sustained book of business. And then when you get to a point where you're actually getting some traction and you have a seller or 2 or 10, which I hope you all do, you have to look at the productivity. So there's aspects of quota that become interesting, and there's a percent productivity, meaning what percentage attainment is being reached by your sellers. So if you have everyone, so there's different philosophies on this, but one of the things that you want to do is make sure that, one, you set a reachable but stretched quota, and that at the same time they're able to attain that. So we like to see about 80% of sellers over 80% of their attainment. That is absolute best practice. And I will tell you, not everybody does this. I mean, actually, it's a very hard target to reach because you're dealing with people. And there's a lot going on, especially in a very fluid market. And then finally is prospecting. So I'm going to not talk about this very much because I'm going to bring up an example around this in the next slide. So any questions there about sales, objectives, and KPIs? Okay. All right, so how do we translate KPIs into actual activities? And so what I'm going to do is focus in on that important aspect of leads. How do I find the people who are interested in my product? And that is really interesting because it's really for prospecting, you want to work backwards. So for example, if we look to the left, if you use marketing as a major part of generating leads, and you have a target of, let's say, $100,000 for bookings, and the average deal size is $5,000 per deal, you need about 20 wins, right? Okay, so if the lead to opportunity conversion that means the top of the funnel. You've got someone who's willing to talk to you about, or it's kind of middle of the funnel. You've got someone willing to talk to you to the opportunity. So in this case, so I'm sorry, number of opportunities is 20, not wins. So let's just say your target is 100,000 in your pipeline. You've got 5,000 per deal. You got 20 opportunities is your target. How many, if you're doing a lead to opportunity conversion, which means you've got someone on the line, they're willing to talk to you about the problem, and you need to move them into the sales cycle, and the conversion is 50%. How many leads do you need? This is a question to you all. Let's see. How many? Okay. Great, thank you. Sorry. And then if you have inquiry to lead conversion is 10%, that means people actually filling out your form and you're trying to get them on the phone to talk to them, and it's 10%. How many inquiries do you need? Great. So we had 40 opportunities, 10%. Yes, 400. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the sales side. All right. The sales side is essentially someone on the, this is not, let's say you do not have strong marketing, and now you have to be prospecting out yourself. You are looking at what opportunity, like what accounts are out there and everything. So your target again is 100,000. Let's say your average deal size is again 5,000. You need 20 opportunities. If the number of dials to opportunity is 10, so you need to have a warm dial on, like actually having a meaningful conversation with someone to move them into a sales cycle, and that is 10. How many qualification calls do you need to make? 200. Yes. If you have, yeah, I'll try to get you conversion information, Dr. Dave. If you have a number of emails or social media, LinkedIn touches, whatever it is, and that conversion you're seeing is 50, how many emails do you have to make in order to get that to the 200 calls? 10. Is it 1,000? I think so. 1,000. Maybe if it's to 0, yes. And that is really, again, with that, these are cold, right? So these are people you're really trying to like identify and see if there's interest, because you have a list of accounts, and a lot of the stuff you can get if you go to certain websites and you can find some lists. Sometimes you can actually pay for the lists too. But in general, you'll see like it starts to, what ends up happening is there's a couple things. It starts to impact your calendar. You have to understand that if you are saying that you want to make a certain target of the number of deals in your pipeline, there's a whole litany of activity that needs to happen. And so having that level of discipline on what kinds of activities your lead generators are actually doing, or that you're actually doing to make sure that your pipeline is filled, is really important. Now for you, you might have great contacts. And so as a result, you might have like a 2-to-1 because your advisors are really kind of bringing you into deals. And that's fine. You still need to like set goals for yourself such that you know, hey, I still need to be having conversations with like 5 people a week or something of that nature. I'm showing you something that is a little bit more volume, and hopefully you get to a point where you need to build that kind of volume. But at this point, it's really to get you to think about what your KPIs are, what you believe your goals are, and what you need to do today and next week and the week after to make sure that you have a continued series of business to work on. Okay. All right, so I've got 3 minutes. I'm going to bring up a couple things here, which is I'm not going to go too much into customer retention because I think we brought that up earlier. So I am going to talk about board metrics because this is something that, as you start to get into a place where you're growing, these are the things that, and you start to look at board members with some investment background, or you have institutional capital kind of looking at you. These are some of the things they're looking for. They're looking for net new revenue. They're looking for annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue. They're looking at cost per net new revenue. So this is similar to your CAC. They're looking at gross retention, which means the amount of dollars that have churned in relation to what your revenue was prior. Net retention, meaning your gross retention plus any net new revenue over what you were previously in revenue. And NPS. So NPS is just more like your customer satisfaction. So they're really interested in your customer satisfaction. Other aspects are year-on-year growth, which is again, what you're projecting, what you've been growing and what you're projecting. Your rule of 40, meaning your growth rate plus margin. This is really kind of looking at how you're utilizing your capital. And then CAC payback is the number of months it takes to get return from your customer acquisition cost. And finally, your burn rate. So those are just some KPIs as you start thinking about your business. I know a lot of you are in kind of very beginning mode, but definitely setting forward what you want your targets to be with regards to growth and getting those deals, initial deals, and how making it real in the form of what activities you need to make or you need to take in order to make that, to reach those goals is an important takeaway.